babies.
Thank you, Irene.
Thank you, Irene. Bill, how are you?
Good. How are you? It's weird at mid-Thursday afternoon. I like it.
I like that we just open up to a room full of smoke.
Just got out of work.
Just a hazy Thursday cloud. That's not bad. We are doing this afternoon show as a special release with some serious hockey news going down. And we know that you have prior engagements this evening that Ray is probably really angry about. So
do you think so? Like, he just seems so salty. When I saw your text when I woke up this morning last night, when you're like, "Oh, I'll just talk 30 minutes to myself." That's why I was like, "Well, fuck, I'll just jump on. I can just jump on." I left work early because we're driving to Guilford. I can't leave at 5:00 and try to get to the. I'll never get there, so I was like, I'll just take a half a day. That's why I was like, I have plenty of time. I'm still waiting for her to get here. She's not going to get here till like 3-ish. So I was like, fuck, there's plenty of time to do this shit. Salty about it.
I'm sure the salty one will be happy to hear that too. He's just real salty about everything. I shot him an invite. We'll see if he makes a guest appearance here, so he can nod while he looks at Paige Van Zant's OnlyFans in the corner.
He just doesn't know a shit ton about hockey, and it's just like, oh fuck. I was kind of pissed that I was missing right after the draft or the free agency because I wanted to talk hockey. So I was like,
a lot to get to.
Yeah.
So let's do it. Welcome to the Simple Minds Sports Show special Thursday hockey edition. If you're watching on YouTube, please subscribe, rate, review. If you're listening on the podcast, do the same. Please tell your friends, share it, subscribe, unsubscribe. Fuck with those algorithms. Welcome to the Simple Minds Sports Show. Ray, it is also midday Thursday, so this is the first time I'll ever admit to not drinking a white birch beer during the show. But I think that's accepted when you're doing a midday Thursday show. Yeah, for sure. Otherwise, we are exclusively always drinking our favorite white birch beer, our favorite New Hampshire craft beer brewery down in Nashua, New Hampshire. Bill, address, please.
Good side of Amherst Street, 460 Amherst Street.
Yeah, that's not exactly how we do it, but that's okay. That's producer Bill stepping in. The good side of Amherst Street down in Nashua. Get down there, get yourself a flight, get yourself a pint. If you can't get down to the brewery, find it in your local beer stores. Wherever you get it, tell them the Simple Minds boys sent you. White Birch Brewing. So what started out as a really slow day, I was actually getting so aggravated and pissed at Don Sweeney and the Bruins. I wrote a blog at like 11 o'clock a.m. yesterday and released it asking where the fuck was Sweeney, because rightfully so, because the free agency didn't start at noon on Wednesday. No. Free agency started 3 weeks ago. And we heard deals coming out left and right, not to mention all the trades that were going down. And the Bruins, meanwhile, were absolutely silent. Well, that did not last long. So let me quickly give you the signings and we'll get into it. I'll try to go in order, but I kind of forget. So I think the first one that came through was Derek Forbort, the defenseman, left shot defenseman, 3 years, $9 million for old Forbort. The next to come in came in simultaneously, Eric Huala. 2 years, 4.75 AAV, and Tomas Nozick, 2 years, $3.5 million. And then we got some bigger ones. I guess you would call Nick Foligno, I think is how you pronounce it.
I think that's how you say it, yeah.
I think in the season we were pronouncing it phalangios, which
close enough.
Might be more fun. Nick Foligno is a 33-year-old veteran, been around the league a little bit, last in Toronto last year, but really made his mark in Columbus. They got him in a 2-year deal, $7.5 million per. And then the big one out of the day, Linus, not Linus, Linus Ullmark. They pulled another guy out of that shithole Buffalo. And this was the big one, 4 years, a total of $20 million there. So significant day, 5 players total, $15.925 million cap hit with those 5 players. You're looking at prospective number 2 goalie, third pairing defenseman, some bottom 6 forwards. And then just to round off the day quickly, Dan Vladar was traded to the Calgary Flames and David Krejci is yet to be signed. And the big elephant in the room, not a top 4 defenseman was brought into the room here. And you only got about $2 million left on the cap. We expect a big trade. We expect that to involve DeBrusk. I throw it over to you. Your initial Reactions to the signings. What was your favorite? What was the best?
I like Flangio a lot, or Foligno. Flangio. I like Foligno as a player, but he's past his prime a little bit. He can play left wing, play center. He basically play all three forward positions. I mean, tentatively right now, he's expected to slide into your number 2 center role. His best days of scoring are kind of past him. I like him more as a bottom 3, bottom 4, lineman. They filled every need they really needed, except for that big left shot defenseman, top 4 defenseman. I mean, if you think about it, this reminds me a lot of what the Patriots do in the years past, building around Brady with like not star-studded names, but guys that are going to give depth and guys that are going to help this team win. If you think about the team the last 3-4 years in the playoffs, one of their biggest issues with third and fourth line on that team, you had a good, in years past, you just had one line. Now, last postseason, especially against the Islanders, you had two lines that were rolling. You saw a defensive heavy team kind of shut the top 2 down. You had zero skill in size really on the third and fourth line. You're bringing in Hula, who had 24, 25 goals for Vegas on their cup run a couple years ago. He's going to slide in probably your third line center, maybe third line left wing, depending on where you're going to play Coyle. That other forward they got out of Winnipeg or whatever it was, the Novak or whatever.
Yeah, was that in Winnipeg? I don't know. Yeah.
So anyways, but he's another guy that's going to slide right in your third and fourth line. But you got to understand what they did. They added size and they added speed. Sean Corrales of the world, Nordstrom's of the world, Chris Wagner's of the world, even Lazar, all undersized guys that could not hold up for the rigors of the playoffs. And that's proven. I think as much as the first line's kind of underachieved in the playoffs, there's a big reason by it. They're facing their top D pair every night, the top checking line every single night. They're in the playoffs, and because there was nothing there. These aren't they're not huge superstar teams, but this is adding depth. If you look at Tampa, who just won a Stanley Cup, Coleman just went out to Calgary for fucking $30 million. 2 other guys, one went to the Rangers, the other guy went to fucking Seattle. Like you saw some of these guys, those are just depth guys that you need. Now you have the ability to roll 3-4 lines consistently. There is some question marks obviously with Foligno. Again, his best days are behind him, and you kind of hope that he has to stay healthy. He only played 11 games total after the trade to Toronto last year. He got hurt and played 4 games in the postseason, had 1 point. So hopefully that he could kind of pick it up, the scoring with a little better players. Right now he's your second line center with Hall and on the left and Craig Smith on the right. So you're hoping that, he can kind of find a spark. 2 years, I think he's making 3.6, 3.7, which is, it's not huge money, but it's they needed to fill those holes. There was no room on the second line. There's obviously no room on the first line. The biggest thing that I hate the most is the top 4 defensemen, because as you have right now is.
Well, hold on. Let me reflect back on just a little bit of what you just said, because I think, just to summarize that day, I think it was a really good day for the Bruins for all the things that you just said. In terms of filling a lot of holes, getting, bringing that top 6, giving them the size and the speed like you discussed, and making them a competitive couple of units compared to what you've had the last few years. And I like Foligno. Cassidy's come out and said basically their center position is going to be outside of Bergeron by committee. You've got everyone you sign, essentially, every forward you signed essentially has the skill to play the center position. So you're looking at a Foligno, Coyle, Hala. How do you say his name? Hala?
Hula?
Nozek. All these guys have the ability to play center. You still got Lazar there. So, I think you're going to see some shuffling down there in the bottom 6 for sure. That being said, to the point you're getting to, this is all good right now. And I fully, with only $2 million left on the cap, expectations of Krejci out there, maybe Tuukka, for the love of God, we'll get to it. There has to be a move. We think it has to be DeBrusk. It seems like he's been pushed out with these forward moves. So I'm going to
sleep on Charlie Coyle either.
Well, I was going to get there.
Go.
I was gonna get there because, good moves, good place to start. But if this is where you're finished, not good enough. You certainly need a top 4 pairing, and now you need a second line center, because Foligno's not that guy. I like him. I think he can mix in. I've said give Coyle that second line and see what he can do. But if you want to move him with a DeBrusk or something else for a big top 4 guy, or,
Eichel.
I keep throwing Eichel out there.
I mean,
that that just real quickly, that Coyle contract, the DeBrus contract,
Gets
whatever
you
other
Eichel.
fodder you want, get you Eichel.
Yep.
So, and he was last seen the first day of free agency skating around in Boston with one Bruce Cassidy. So let's.
Is that even allowed? How is that allowed?
Well, he's not a free agent, right? So I don't think it's technically tampering. It's like you see it in the NBA all the time. All these guys getting fucking gyms together.
Yeah, but not the coach. Not the
First day of
coach.
free agency, you're out in Warrior Ice State Arena skating around with Cassidy. So keep your eyes out for something big going on there. But let's just stick with what's happened so far, and that lack of getting the top four defensemen. We saw all the free agencies go off the board. We've seen all of these trades. We were speculating for days. Nothing yet. That's big. That's big. This Derek Forbert guy, he's your PK. I mean, he'll slot right in at the PK, but
he's your third
bottom.
Yeah, it does give you more matchups now. So you have Grizzly kind of locked in at the number one pairing with Charlie McAvoy, but it also gives you that matchup later in games where you can mix and match with O'Reilly and then with a Forbert. You can bring Forbert up and play him with McAvoy, which you kind of see, and you've mentioned this a bunch of times on our show, Grizzly. I mean, he's undersized defenseman. He gets beat up a lot. So exposing him down on the third line is a lot better than kind of have him play heavy minutes, especially in the playoffs with the first line. So it gives you a little flexibility there.
Let me stop you there. Sorry to interrupt you, but just while you're on Grizzly, don't sleep on him being put in a deal too.
I wouldn't be surprised. I think his deal's what, 2.5 to 3 million cap hit, or 3.4. It's something not crazy, but I mean, to go back to your point with the Eichel trade, because you and I kind of agree on this, because I was about to say the same thing. You have Coyle, DeBrusque, and if you want to throw in a Grizzly and a first-round draft pick, I mean, that makes the money work. It does make you – if they make that move, you kind of see why they went out and got all these depth forwards, guys that can play center by committee, guys that can play off wing, guys that aren't centermen but can play. You have Stadnicki, you have Trent Frederick, who also can play at center. So if you really wanted to just start thinking about moving Coyle, moving DeBrusque, moving Grizzly, moving a first-round draft pick and getting something back from Buffalo, a.k.a. Jack Eichel, I mean, that seems like the most logical move. You heard Vegas is in on Eichel. I think I texted you guys that the other night. They were looking for like the corpse of Riley Smith, two other guys in a first, which looking at that deal, I think the Bruins can offer comparable, if not better players.
So I've been saying, not to toot my own horn, but I've been saying this. Buffalo is not in a position. They have no fucking leverage. Like their first expectations were 4 first-round picks or prospects that met that
equivalent. Yeah,
you can't get that for a guy that wants out of there, has either a knee or a hip or whatever.
It's a neck. It's a neck.
He wants surgery for.
Buffalo said no.
To go to Boston. He, it's a disaster there, and it's $10 million for a guy that underachieved certainly last year, and the year before that he also didn't have a great year. So I've always thought that Buffalo was in a real shitty situation when it came to Eichel. I don't know if I want to become Buffalo East, which is what it looks like Boston's doing right now. But it's hard to pass up on a guy like Jack Eichel if you can get him for the likes of Coyle, DeBrusque, Grizzly, and a first. I mean, that's a fucking no-brainer.
Yeah, it seems, because that's a low asking price. I expect a bounce back. I've been a big fan of Charlie Coyle since they got him in 2019. I was real down on him last year, obviously, because, he was injured. No one really knew, but he was playing on a torn up knee. So you're hoping getting a healthy Coyle back in playing him with, Smith and Hall, like that's a formidable second line, right? I mean, you're thinking about, you're a top 5 second line in hockey, probably. If you get 15 to 20 goals out of Charlie Coyle, I think we'd all be happy with that. If you look at Taylor Hall last year, he's on a 41 goal pace since he joined the Bruins. I expect him to be between 30 and 40 goals, honestly, if he's healthy for the full year. Now you're getting a healthy him coming in training camp in the system. I expect him to be a lot better, a lot motivated now. I don't think he's going to sit back. He finally found a home, as he wants to call it. But again, it's weird what they see in these guys in Buffalo. Again, Olmark, whatever his name is.
Sorry to interrupt you again, but I want to get there real quick. I want to touch on Krejci first, though, while we're on this forwards position. Because now if you look at it, I've been saying it's time to move on for Krejci, time to move on here. But the Bruins did what we've been talking about for a little bit. They've kind of followed that game plan that we thought would be a nice move for them. They found short-term deals on pretty short money with veterans that could come in and play right now and expand or take advantage of this last Bergeron run. And, that's why I'm a big fan of the moves that they've made, 2-year, 3-year deals for these forwards that can come in and immediately play and immediately be an impact. So now you look at the Krejci situation and go, shit, if you got your top line intact, if your second line center is Krejci with Smith and Hall, and now you jump Coyle and you give them Hala and Foligno, now you've got 3 legitimate hockey lines. Plus you just brought in some beef down on the fourth line. And Lazar's still there. I like him. So
well, your fourth line right now.
That's formidable. To the greater point, I'll throw it over to you. Krejci is still in the wind. I think the Bruins offered him a 1-year below average deal and said, take it or leave it. It'll be there if you want it. And it'll probably be there if he wants it at any point in time during the season. For a 35-year-old, player, that's not the worst thing, I guess. I'd like to see him here sooner than later if he's going to take it. But I would say, it's a Chara situation. Here's the deal. It's a 1-year, $2.5 million, $3 million deal. Take it or leave it, Krejci. We're not going beyond that. Let us know what you want to do. And if he comes back, you're looking pretty good.
Yeah, I mean, because then you're legit have 3 solid lines. You'll probably start playing Trent Frederick down there in the fourth line in his natural position at center, where you can move Nordic or Nortek or whatever, Norris.
Yeah.
You can move him around.
Tomas Nosek.
Sorry. You can move him. He's your bottom 4 guy or bottom. Yeah, he's on the fourth line. So you can pretty much play him wherever. You still have Jack Studnicka. So, I mean, you're going to have a lot of room. And again, you're putting a once 25 goal scorer with Charlie Coyle, and then Foligno scored, I think his high was 31 or 34 goals in 14 or 15 that one season. So another 30 goal scorer. I get it. His best days are behind him, but he could still skate, and you could play Charlie Coyle on that right wing and move Foligno to center too.
He can go anywhere.
He can go anywhere.
He said, in his talks with the press, he said Bergeron gave him a call day 1 of free agency, which helped. Little insight on Nick Foligno too. His kid was once saved
by Boston Children's. Yep.
So he had that going for him. He was also told that, there's an opportunity with Krejci in the win that, you could be getting second line minutes with Hall. You can be getting third line minutes. You'll bounce around. He'll be a little bit of a Swiss Army knife there, which you can certainly see for that type of player. Yeah, it's just exciting to see the opportunities and the depth that you have. And now you can really kind of mix and match those young forwards like the Studnickas, get them some ice time as you try to build your system back up if everyone can stay healthy. That being said, just real quick, give me your take on Krejci. Do you think he's coming back? Do you want him to come back? Does it make sense for him to come back at this point?
It still makes sense for him to come back. I don't necessarily want him back. I think at the end of the season, especially when they lost to the Islanders, I think don't run it back, kind of let these guys go. But he did show something with Hall, when Hall on that second line with Craig Smith. So, I mean, you can kind of see it again. It gives you a solid 1 through 3 option on the down the center at the center position, truthfully. And then it gives you, again, 3 solid lines. I don't want him back for anything more than $2 million. You can technically sign him for more than that. I know you only have $2 million cap space. You're allowed to go 10% over the cap on the off season. So that, if I'm not mistaken, the cap's $81 million. So that gives you about $8.1 million. So you're about $10 million that you can technically still spend. Right. But I mean, then you got to start addressing other pieces to get under that cap later on. But, he still has something left in the tank. It's not a bad option to bring him back. I want him no more than $2 million. But again, I just because I liked what I saw out of that second line. They just look revitalized.
I heard someone say it the other day is like, you finally got David Krejci, a left wing or a solid winger, and now you're going to short arm him and not give him the money, not have him come back. I kind of get that sentiment. I'm torn. We were both like, it's time to move on. We've seen what this team is the last couple seasons, getting stomped in the second round. But look, I think Sweeney's made some moves here to put him in a position. And Krejci, I just tried to look up the stat. I don't have it, but he was like 4th in assists per whatever.
Per 60 minutes.
Which was behind McDavid, Draisaitl, and one other guy. So
McKinnon, I think.
Maybe.
Or something like that, yeah.
3 of the top 10 players in the
top
NHL.
5 players in the NHL.
So, like you said, he's still got something to offer. That line did kind of disappear in the playoffs. But yeah, if you're looking at if you're looking at maximizing this time next 2 to 3 years of course. If Krejci comes back on at 2-3 $3 million deal, then go for it. And if you pull Lightning and stash him or God forbid Tuukka on the LTIR, then you're playing the system. Good for you. You fucking should. And and kudos if this all goes according to what we think to the Jacobses and actually spending some real money out there and going for it, because obviously we know their MO at times is not to do that.
No, that's true. And he was a big fan of the salary cap, and I'll give him credit as much as I think he's one of the worst owners in sports history. He does allow the team to spend to the cap. So because he knows he's not going to spend $100 million. You look at the Red Wings in the early 90s when they were winning back-to-back cups, they were spending a shit ton of money because there's no Stanley salary cap. So, I mean, he is spending the money. You just invested $54 million over the next 4 years, I believe. Well, Dougie Hamilton got $63 million himself.
That's a stupid fucking deal.
It's a very stupid deal. And that just sucks because the price of a top 4 defenseman with that stupid contract is a reason why you saw the Bruins kind of go to the bargain bin. There was a lot of holes in this team that they really needed. I don't think they had a lot of money. You saw Olmark come in for $5 million, which was their big signing with AAV outside of Taylor Hall. That you didn't expect them to go spend that kind of money, not with the 2 young guys that you got to sign in McAvoy and Pasternak coming back. So you got to look for one that's signed long-term or has got a couple years left that's still 5 to 6 range instead of the fucking 8 to 9 range that is costing Marker costs another $9 million. So, I mean, it's a lot of the price out there for the fucking top 4 defensemen. It wasn't worth it. And even Suter got 4 for 13, which again, as a Bruins fan, as much as we wanted Suter, I wasn't paying him I wasn't going 4 years for a 36-year-old guy.
A little bit long there, especially like you said, with McAvoy and Pasta coming up, which is a story for another day. But yeah, let's get into the goalie signing, which I thought was the biggest surprise, and not necessarily the signing, which was a happy surprise. Linus Ullmark, 4 years, $20 million, 5 per. Like you said, when that came through, first of all, I had to look him up because who the fuck knows like the semi backup platoon goalie for the Buffalo Sabres. But as it turns out, pretty good. Last year for the worst team in the league, had a .937 save percentage, had a winning record at 9-6. Among goalies with 900 plus 5-on-5 minutes, he was 5th in the league. So pretty good guy. Let's assume that he's going to get the Buffalo bump. Anytime anyone comes out of that organization, they're going to be a little bit better than they were. We saw that with Taylor Hall. But obviously when that contract came down, questions had to be asked. 4 years when we all thought it was going to be turned over to Swayman and a veteran goalie backing him up. And then Vladar was whatever. Vladar gets traded to Calgary, automatically slots Swayman into the backup role. And at $5 million per, Linus is your clear number 1 goalie heading into this season. And the 4 years things, I mean, isn't that a cock block for Swayman? I mean, isn't that going to get in the way?
I'm not 100% against it. I actually kind of talked myself into this signing. I wasn't a huge fan of it on paper, but kind of looking at it, he was 9-6 9-6-3 with Buffalo last year. The rest of Buffalo goalies were 6-28 and like 5 or some ridiculous thing like that. So you kind of saw it. 937 save percentage. I think he's 2.7 goals against for his career. I think the biggest thing is too, he's not good behind a crappy defense because Buffalo was last in penalty kill and his save percentage was .890, on the penalty kill. But now if you look at Halak over there in the Islanders, his couple years in Islanders was real down when they signed him in 2018, 2019 to bring him over. And he kind of put a good solid team behind him. He's young. He's 26, about to be 27. He's kind of entering his prime. There's a lot to like there. He got hurt last year, I think April 13th against the Boston Bruins, and he never played again. It just reminds me of like a Patriots signing, like a Kendrick Bourne this year. He kind of came out of nowhere at the $4 to $5 million, $6 million range for a wide receiver, in the Wes Welker of the world. It just seems like one of those kind of signings. And where I alluded to earlier with all these picks for, 3 million AAV for Forsberg, 3 million for Mike Riley. It just seems like it was a Patriot-esque offseason for them because they're close, and the Patriots were close from 2004 to fucking the next time in 14. Between the 10-year gap, 12-year gap they had between Super Bowls, they were close, right? So I mean, this is the kind of season. As far as I'm not opposed to them bringing in a goalie like this. I thought it'd be more of a veteran guy, a guy like a Bernier or someone like that could Brayton Holtby, who went to Dallas for pretty cheap for $1.5 million or whatever. I thought I expected to be something like that and kind of hand the reins over to Swayman, but I don't mind. Hold on real quick. I don't mind the fact that they're going to kind of bring him along slowly. And if you look at the way the Bruins run their regular season with goalies, I mean, he's probably going to get between 30 and 35 starts anyways, where, Ullmark might get 50, 45 to 50, somewhere in that range. So, I mean, it's going to be a 60-40 split, and you're still bringing him on. And $5 million for a backup goalie, next year might not be terrible when you still have Swayman on a rookie contract. So, I mean, if you think about it, their goalie situation is no more than $6 million this year, where they were paying Rask almost $8 million just for last year. Right. So, I mean, that goalie. So if you think about it that way, you're going to sign Swayman to a bridge deal when his deal's up. He's not, even if you get him at a few years, even if you get him at $5 million, $6 million, Montreal's paying Carey Price $10.1 million. You could pay two goalies that, you know what I mean? So I
I understand. I look at the Bruins and the goalie situation, and similar to your football analogy, you don't see this a lot in hockey in terms of like the way teams handle certain positions like you do in football. But I think the Bruins have a pretty evident track record of being really conservative at goalie. We saw it with even when Tuukka Rask was coming up. And they wanted to give him the reins, but he showed a couple cracks in the armor. They gave him the reins
against fucking Philly in the playoffs of Philly. Yeah,
that's what I mean. And then they backed off of it, and they're very cautious about losing that guy. And, say what you want about Tuukka Rask, but he's the most successful goalie in Bruins history in terms of longevity and statistics. Obviously, we know his track record in big situations. So you have to look at that and understand that that's probably their viewpoint in terms of Swayman. You look at the young guys around the league, Bennington with the Blues, who fell off the fucking face of the earth after that. The kid in Philadelphia, help me.
Carey Hart.
Really?
Murray from Pittsburgh had a Stanley Cup, and then he's already out. They have Jury there now in Pittsburgh. So
we know that goalies are wired differently.
Dombrowski, look at him. He won the Calder, and he sucked the next couple of years, and he got revitalized over there in Columbus when he won a Vezina. So I mean, there's a long history of it.
So yeah, you can see that happening. I think that the Bruins organization, and Sweeney's been there a long time. Cam obviously been there a long time. They have a certain way that they want to handle goalies. So yeah, when you take a step back and look at it from a bird's eye view, that 4-year deal for Linus Linus is not terribly surprising based on what the Bruins have done with goalies. The only thing I'll say is next season, if Swayman is clearly the guy, you got to give him the reins, and you got to find a trade partner at that point, right? So you're setting yourself up for a potential move. Whether it's the money or whether it's the or does Linus Linus want to be a fucking backup? I don't think so. So at some point, if Swayman really is the guy that we think he is, and it advances there quicker than the Bruins think that he can or should, you're just gonna be in a situation that you'll have to manage. But at this point, it seems like you've got a goalie that fits your system in terms of put a good defense in front of them, don't make mistakes, and give us a chance to win. Looks like that's your guy. And then you got a young kid coming up in the ranks, and you've cleared that path, getting rid of Vladar for sure. So the last point in this, though, because we'd be remiss not to bring it up, when Don Sweeney was asked about Tuukka Rask, quote, "We've always left the door open for Tuukka's return," Sweeney said. "It allows Jeremy to continue the progress at a natural rate, but also give him the opportunity to be at the NHL level."
I don't think Tuukka's coming back, dude. You're a butterfly goalie with a torn hip labrum. You just got to fix, Thursday or yesterday?
Yeah. Well, you had to get a couple of rounds out there.
Yeah, of course he did. Yeah. No, it does. It does. He did keep the door open, window open, whatever the fuck you want to call it. But it just, the thing with Swayman and Ullmark, you got probably 2 years to really figure it out. I think that's a 2-year window unless Swayman plays out of his fucking mind and establishes himself as, a Calder Trophy candidate, a Vezina candidate. I expect him to be one of the best goalies in the league in 4 or 5 years, honestly, just from the 10-game sample that we got. So if he keeps naturally developing it, the pace that Bruins still want him, you got about 2 years between these two guys before you're really going to fully hand the reins over. And then at $5 million with the market still going up, I mean, I think this is more signing for like the future because the market for goalies is going to go up. I mean, Carey Price is already at $10 million. I know it's a stupid signing by them, but Fleury's at $7-8 million. The money's going up in 2 years, I believe. With the ESPN money so you expect all the goalie contracts to start really going up. So I mean, you're going to have him at a bargain based price of $5 million. Where I mean, if he shows good for these 2 years, whether it's 50% duty, whether it's full time goalie, and Swayman and keeps progressing the way he's progressed, I mean, that's a trade chip right there. I mean, you think he'll be right at the
28 or no,
yeah, so he's going to be basically right at 30, right around that 30 mark. I mean, if he starts balling out where he's that good, but then you have Swayman, like if you lead the league next year in goals against or least goals allowed and shit like that, and I mean, yeah, you have a 2-year window to really figure out your goalie situation. Now, it sucks he kind of lost Vlader. I thought he had a little bit of talent, but he was out of waivers. You couldn't send him to Providence without clearing waivers. To get a 3rd-round pick, I was hoping they could kind of package him for a serviceable left-shot defenseman. I mean, again, he's still a young guy. He's only 23 years old. Excuse me. You'd think he'd have more value than a 3rd-round pick. We've talked about packaging him and DeBrus together, and it was just weird, but as soon as they signed this, you knew something was going to have to happen quick. And it was kind of shocking to see him just trade Vladar. But I mean, he was the most logical sense because you want trading Swayman. So I mean, yeah, $5 million. I'm okay with the money, and we'll see. We'll see. Get that stink of Buffalo off. You've seen again. I keep alluding to the Patriots because that's what it reminds me of a lot this year is pulling guys out of divisions off shitty teams and turning them into real players. Look at Taylor Hall. I know he has as much talent in the world as the number 1 pick, but he did nothing in Buffalo. He comes here. He looks like the fucking MVP caliber that he was 3 years ago. So, I mean, there's hopes.
Yeah, you can definitely like the Buffalo bump. Let me just give you a quote from Sweeney. Because I think to your point that you've been making about the Bruin or the Patriots analogy, I think Sweeney has a plan, and I think he's trying to execute that plan. The question mark is defense at this point, obviously. So we'll see where he goes from that. But this was his quote when after day 1 of free agency, he said, "quote We've always felt our core group was so dedicated and driven to win. How could we support that moving forward? We were mindful of term during this period of time and identifying players that would fit into that driven mindset." Brandon sort of started that by signing long-term, Brandon Carlo. That allowed us to move to the next player in Taylor Hall and fitting the pieces together. So that encourages me because it seemed like they had a plan of attack. They wanted to go out there. You get Carlo on a long-term, short money deal. That allows you to sign Taylor Hall on a semi-short-term money deal. Now you've got the money to go out there in free agency and sign. I will say, I don't think Mike Riley was their first choice.
I don't either.
They were in on Suter, didn't get him, and they were in on Alec Martinez out there in Vegas, didn't get him.
Yandel as well, but I'm kind of glad they didn't get him either. So
yeah, they must have passed on Yandel at $900K for Philly, or maybe he passed on them. I don't know. But either way, let's if Mike Riley was their 3rd, 4th, 5th pick, whatever, they have that. Look, they got a hole to fill, and that's left shot defenseman. That is undeniable. If they go into the season with Grzelcyk as your top pairing with McAvoy, I'll be disappointed. And I think you've just set yourself up for the same outcome that you've had the last several years. And all of this really nice roster building that you've done is all for naught. We saw it in the playoffs. I mean, your defense was awful. I get injuries played into that, but injuries are always going to play into that. So they have to address it. They have to get a top 4 pairing, and I still think that they probably need some more depth there too. But yeah, first day 1 free agency, Bruins came out with a bang, and certainly there's more to come.
It has to be. I think you're going to see more, again, a more trade in the works. DeBrusk seems like the odd man out at this point. He's getting $4.8 million of real money this year. His cap hit's only 3.65, but he's getting 4.8 in real money. So, I mean, you're going to want to try to move him, and they do value him. They just think they don't want to give up on him. But at this point, he got to. I mean,
go.
He's got to go. They tried him on Coilzine. They tried him with Krejci. They tried him with all these, Bergeron at one point. He's moved up and down the four lines. He doesn't get it. He's the bubble hockey, table hockey fucking player that just goes end to end and just can't. It amazes me that he had 27 goals 3 years ago and now you can't do anything. Like, you just it's got to be a confidence level. Let him go somewhere else. He's just trying to save face because he was a wasted draft pick by Sweeney in his first draft. But as far as his free agent signings go, I mean, he had to hit on him because he's been piss poor. I think Craig Smith, honestly, was probably one of his better signings, which was last year. I mean, you look at Matt Bolesky, 2015, his first major one. You had to bury him in Providence, get that money off the books and eat some of it. I don't even remember where he went to. Then you had obviously David Backes kind of coming over at the next year, a lot of as big money deals. So he's kind of went away from it, and his trades have been better. He went over and got Rick Nash. Can't really fucking control his concussions. But
Johansson the next year was
Charlie Coyle. Johansson was really good. Yeah. Taylor Hall, he's making good moves. It's just
and his drafting to start was pathetic to piss poor. It seems like all the experts have said that this last draft 2021 they're high on. So maybe he's turned a corner as a GM. Not a lot of GMs get an opportunity to go through a learning curve like that. But when you're in the Bruins system, it's hard to get him out of there. It's
because he's been making the playoffs.
It's hard to get him out of there. You get to the playoffs, you got a job, baby. And that's Bruins under Jacobs, and that's fine. It makes for entertaining hockey seasons year in and year out, and I'll take it. But it would be nice to see him make that next step. I think they had a good step in that direction for day one of free agency. It's nice whether they put Tuukka on that LTIR or not. You bring in a goalie at $5 million. We're moving past the Tuukka era. If something crazy happens and Linus Linus gets hurt, Swayman gets hurt or whatever, and they have to go back and rely on Tuukka, then okay. But it's not like he's your goalie for the future. That ship is pretty much sailing, I think, which is good. I think that's a move in the right direction. Same with Krejci. If he's here, it's for one more year. We're moving forward. And we got a 2-3 year window here with the Bruins with these signings. Hopefully they can focus just as much on the Providence side of thing, and we start seeing the young guys come up and we look at the next era. But for now, let's keep our eye on the trades going on with the Bruins and see if they can get a left shot defenseman in there. We are out of time. This has been the Simple Minds Sports Show, special edition hockey show with me and Hockey Bill. We'll see you on Friday. See ya.
Bye-bye.
I was gonna try and get into the rest of the league, but there's
so much. And honestly, so many of the guys, I'm like, I don't know who you are. I don't know who you are.
Calgary,
I follow hockey,
Calgary's
but
all
Jesus.
over the place. Mm-hmm. They've been moving and grooving.
Bruins were in on Coleman. He was the number one option, but $6 million or $5.5 million you got. See ya. Bye-bye. I'm not paying.
Coleman at 6 or Foligno at what is he at 3.2 or something like that?
3.7. Probably Foligno because it's only a 2-year deal. Where Coleman got 6. And again, I allude Matt Bolesky. He played with Corey Perry and Ryan Getzlaf out there in Anaheim and scored 25 goals. Couple years in a row. Well, look what happened when he came out here in Boston, and it just feels like some of these guys down there in Tampa, when they're so fucking big. I mean, Braden Point just signed for an 8-year, $8 million deal. He is undervalued at $8 million in my opinion.
Yeah.
So I mean, and
Coleman is the exact guy off a championship team. He was a third liner there, taking talk about the Bruins first line taking on the best competition. I mean, what kind of competition did Coleman really see as a third line winger on the Tampa Bay Lightning. He was getting the trash from every other team and cleaning up. And frankly, in the playoffs, I think he averaged like a goal every 6 games or something like that.
Yeah, it was basically 1 goal a series.
Yeah,
but it felt like a big goal every series. You know what I mean? It wasn't one of those like
the Bruins. I like him. He's a grinder. He's a big guy. You know, he plays both ends. I get that, but I'm out on that deal. He's the exact guy you're talking about. Like, he's going to go to Calgary and trying to be a second line guy for them, and he is not going to fit that bill. I just don't. I think that he's got that Tampa bump on him.
They had a couple guys, Grudjo, I think, who the Seattle Kraken took the Bruins. He was at the top of their list. And then the guy that the Rangers got, it starts with another G or something. I forget his name, but he got traded to the Rangers from Tampa. Bruins were in on him. I think he was a restricted, and they can't afford him down there in Tampa because they're up against the salary cap at this point. You know, they were $17 million over when they won.
Still over it by 7 or 8. They're going to put Seabrook on LTIR now.
Well, that was
play the same fucking game.
He's done. He's never playing again.
No,
he's done. He's never playing again.
Oh, I didn't know that.
No, so he's never going to play again. It's basically the Mark Savard thing. You know, they kept him on every year. Then they traded him to Arizona or Florida one year because they needed to get to the floor, the cap floor. So they kind of threw him in there. But that's kind of what happened. The thing with the LTR with Tuukka is that you got to be out the whole year. If he's only projected to be out January or February, if I'm not mistaken, you can't come off of it mid-season because it's basically you're out for the whole entire year. So I don't know if you can really play that. And if Swayman and Ullmark are actually playing really good, what would be the point of switching that up if they're playing? There's 0 points. So I don't understand why you're kind of leaving the door open unless Swayman, you know, regresses from the 10 games that we saw and doesn't look like the guy that is ready especially come now, you got to go to have a full slate. You got a full off season. You got a full workload coming, 82 game schedule. I believe if you kick off, puck drops October 16th, I think is their first game one, you know, so you don't get a full off season. You just finished in June. So, I mean, that would be my only guess. You don't have to sign him until mid-season. But the thing with signing him mid-season is he has to clear waivers before he can come in. And someone can plunk him off waivers. And then that's a whole nother mess because then he'll just refuse. And then the Bruins can't go out and sign him again. So it's just going to be – there's a lot of weird, tricky ways that they're going to do it. But, I mean, if they're going to sign him, one, you don't ever dress 3 goalies. It was the same problem with Dan Vladar. And – I feel like Swayman's going to learn better at the NHL level. You don't have to give him the full slate of games, but if he's getting 30, 35 games up the NHL level, I think it's more beneficial than him being down in Providence. So the door open for Tuukka makes 0 fucking sense.
Yeah, I don't like that quote from Cassidy that the door's allowing Swayman to progress more naturally. But also somewhere in that language, he said, there's Swayman doesn't have to go through waivers to send him back down to Providence. So I would hate if they have the idea that, all right, well, we'll keep Swayman as the backup here until Tuukka's ready, and we're saving some money for him on the books right now. We'll pay him the $3 million. Come January, February, we'll bring him in, send Swayman back down to Providence full time, and go with that battery. Fuck that. Just cut the fucking cord, man. It's over. It's over.
Yeah. It was over 2 years ago. It was over in Game 7 against St. Louis.
Yeah,
it was over.
Shit. Well, trade him. Him and Krejci that should have fucking dumped for some first-round draft picks. They'd be looking okay right now.
What is on your lip?
It's a zit.
Oh, it's driving me crazy. It looks like herpes. Like, what the fuck?
I was trying to hide it with the mic.
I can see it.
Well, shit. Fuck you, Bill. Thanks for joining us.
You're welcome.
Train